Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nairobi Health Show with Chris Burres. Chris, I'm glad we could hook up. It's been a little while for us to arrange this and get together, but I'm so glad you're able to be here on the podcast.
We finally did it. And Dave, I'm running a little bit late, so I apologize. And I'm excited to connect with you and your audience and see if we can figure some cool things out today.
Well, let's jump into it. You've got a unique story. I'm gonna read a little bit about it. I mean, the title of this episode is a Nobel Prize-winning molecule that could add years to your life. And longevity is one of the most important topics in health to me. It wasn't when I was 20, and it is now.
Yes.
and I'm sure that's how it is for everyone. As you get older, all of a sudden, being buff or having six-pack abs drops way down on your values of health, and living long with vitality and having great energy, that becomes much more important, right?
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, and we'll get into the story, but one of the things that's consistent, even after I share the research with the different people, and the research kind of suggests a 90% extension of life. A lot of people are like, well, why would I want to live longer? And I've always been a guy, for whatever reason, I got a number stuck in my head from a long time ago, maybe even before I was 20, that I wanted to live to 125. Like that was just my idea. And so when people ask me, why would I want to live longer? For me, it kind of befuddles me. But then I ask the question, if you could live longer with the same physical capacity and the same mental capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer? And it's not everyone, but almost universally, everyone was like, well, yeah, like if I have my faculties about me. So we have as a society right now, old age means infirmment. And like, if I ask you the question, how many more years of infirmment would you like? And the answer is like, well, not that many. Like maybe I need to put together my will and then we're good.
Zero. Yeah. I mean, I've already thought this through. I have a will and I have a living will. Mm-hmm. And my living will states that if I'm ever in such a condition that I have no quality of life, such as confined to a bed, pull the freaking plug.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't want you to artificially extend my life. Once the quality of life is gone, then I want to be gone. And that might sound morbid to some people, but I'm just basically, it's my way of agreeing with what you're saying. I want to keep my quality of life. So it's not just longevity, it's quality of life. I totally get that. Let me read this bio for everyone listening, and then I'm going to have you flesh this out and tell us a little more about your backstory. But Chris Burres is a pioneer in the field of health and a leading expert on the Nobel Prize-winning molecule ESS60 that is shown to boost longevity and overall health in test subjects. When Chris learned that ESS60 was tested by NASA and had been proven to almost double the lifespan in mammals, he made it his mission to provide the world's first nano antioxidant and anti-inflammatory supplement to people around the world. In addition to expanding longevity, Chris can speak on how to lower risk of heart disease, improve vision, and mental acuity, and other things. So that is the talking point sent by your publicist, and something I've been very interested to hear more about. So before we do that, let's back up, because this is interesting, gives us a little bit of information about you, but what's your story? And I don't want to belabor the point, but I do think it's interesting also to know what your upbringing was like. And were you raised in a very healthy environment, or kind of the average American environment? So just describe kind of how you were raised health-wise, and then how you developed your own philosophies of health.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. This will be an interesting journey. So I was actually born in Alabama. I live in Houston. I've lived in Houston the longest I've lived any place. And that makes more sense when I tell you my dad was in the Air Force. So I moved every 2 years. I have 10-year-old twins, and I've explained to them, we actually did our first move from one house to another. It was like, by the time I was your age, 10 years old, I'd already moved 5 times, right? So all of my friends were gone. Like it was all, everything was new. So I think one of the things, and a lot of military brats will share with people, that moving every 2 years causes you have the ability to make friends really quickly. and get along and have a conversation with almost anyone. And so I think that's a very useful skill and has served very well. I can tell you my brother hated moving every 2 years, and I actually look fondly back at moving every 2 years. Literally every 2 years, the only people I knew on the universe were my parents and my brother. And so you get to be a very kind of tight knit and, close in those situations, almost like being locked in a cabin for a short period of time every 2 years. So that was that. In terms of health, my mom was at one point an aerobics instructor. My dad was in the military, so kind of health and fitness is kind of surrounds the environment. I remember jogging with them on a regular basis when I was young. I remember my dad being the coach of my soccer team, and having your father as a coach doesn't come with any benefits, or you don't get any special treatment. Well, at least not the kind that you would hope for. You got special treatment. You could try harder. You get the conversation all the way home.
You embarrassed me.
Yeah, exactly. Not just at the field. But he was an incredible person in terms of like leadership, and really had a very successful career in the Air Force. So yeah, I kind of grew up just, exercising and healthy. I also think, and I'm kind of recognizing this now, that they had different opinions of health. So you were talking, my dad had a DNR and passed a do not resuscitate, and he passed. I actually was there, and very happy I was there, as terrifying as that situation may be. I was there. It was about 2 years ago, and he his health had been on a very severe decline, and ended up in a situation where the paramedics were working on him, and the DNR was very clear, like, do not resuscitate. And I'm actually kind of thankful for that, because I got to see my dad healthy. I didn't have to spend time, next to his bedside for years as he's, just eking by. So that's one kind of concept that certainly resonates with me. And then the other is I'm really kind of I had already made plans going into 2020 to kind of change my diet. It had gotten way off. And so in 2020, I lost 20 pounds. That wasn't the goal. That's actually kind of cool. But my mom was like, well, why are you getting back in shit? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'd like to I've never had a six pack. I've played competitive soccer my whole life. Well, for a big part of my life, but I've never had a six pack. I'd kind of like that. And it was almost like, well, like, that seems like a waste. Like, her kind of mindset is that's just a waste of energy or whatever. And she actually said when she was 40, she became an aerobics instructor, and that was kind of her last hurrah. That's kind of how she described it. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to stop there. Like, there's nothing that says you need to stop there. So the mindset really has shifted. And then there's new things coming out. You look at Dr. David Sinclair, an amazing book called Lifespan, which talks about like 25 plus years of research and actually extending the life of animals, and the parallels between small animals, or in his case, he did a lot of research on yeast and how that actually applies to humans. And you look at Dr. Gundry has written a book called The Longevity Paradox, and he talks, his phrase, which I love, is, I want you to die young at a very old age, right? So like the concept of being healthy and older. And then Dave Asprey with Bulletproof Coffee, like similar concept. I think Dave Asprey's goal is 180. So yeah, I think there's going to be some monumental shifts. I read one book recently, or listened to it actually. And the kind of whole premise of the book is, we're approaching that point at which we will no longer die of old age. And the premise of the book was like, how much would it suck to be that last person who died of old age, right? Like, so do healthy things, have a good diet, do exercise, get good sleep, so that you can extend your life. Maybe that little bit that you extended is enough to get you across that finish line, assuming that finish line coming soon. And I personally believe that it is coming soon.
Let's talk for a minute about studies. One of the things that is interesting to a lot of people is why so many studies are done on rats. And I know this is something you've alluded to in your work.
Yeah.
And yet there are similarities between rats and humans, and plenty of studies done on rats that have proved efficacy on humans later. And so could you talk to that? Many of these studies, and if there are human studies on some of the things you're talking about, of course, we'd love to hear about those too.
Yeah.
So let's start with the animal studies and then talk about how that really could apply or is applying now to humans.
Well, I think you've done some kind of background research. So I'd like to step back and talk about like what we're even talking about here, right? So
okay.
In 1985, three scientists, well, two of them were at Rice University, one from the UK, discovered the third form of carbon, right? That third form of carbon. So if you're watching, I'm holding up a molecule model, and if you're just listening, the best way to imagine it is imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms, and this is kind of colloquially, affectionately known as the buckyball. And they discovered the buckyball and actually a gamut of molecules called fullerenes in 1985, and then actually won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996, a short 11 years. In 2012, my company, we started in 1991. So kind of between discovery and Nobel Prize, we're the first company that exists to deliver commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials. These are carbon nanomaterials. And in 2012, they did a toxicity study. And basically in that toxicity study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with this molecule, and we call it the one that's safer for human consumption. We call that ESS60. Again, it was supposed to be a toxicity study. For various reasons, they thought this molecule would be toxic. And it turns out that those rats that they gave the MyVitalC formula to actually lived 90% longer than the control group. Right. So this is talking about that research. This is peer-reviewed, published research, and it's the single longest longevity result in experimentation on mammals ever. Right. The next best way to live longer, and actually has more research. They've done it on more animal models, and it's got a lot more kind of precedent, is calorie restriction. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, it's very well documented that you can extend your life by 30%. Not too many people are signing up for the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. It may be a marketing thing.
Well, you and I could have a good debate on that, because I not necessarily a good debate, because I generally understand what you're talking about, and caloric deficits suck. But there is also the argument of how many Americans eat 30% too much.
Yeah, one point that I do make is that it's not 30% less than if you're a classic Westerner, more specifically American. Okay. It's not 30% than your current diet. It's 30% less than what your BMI index says you should be eating.
Okay, great clarification. Right? Debate over. You win the debate. Thank you for clarifying that. That's
that could be a 60. That could be a good old 60% decrease in what your current consumption is. And I had fallen prey to a lot of kind of bad habits. I mean, it typically tend to be healthy, but had kind of fallen into some bad habits as it relates to eating, which is why I kind of made changes in 2020. Again,
let me just jump in. That 20-pound number is very significant. If you go to the American Heart Association website, they state very clearly that 20 pounds is a somewhat magical, or perhaps we should call it unmagical number, because a person can thrive and be really healthy and not affect their longevity if they're up to about 20 pounds overweight. Carrying an extra 5, 10, or 15, back to the science, we know that that's really not going to hurt you. It's just not. We all know people who die in their 90s who weren't perfectly thin and definitely didn't have six-pack abs. Right. But the statistics, once you're over 20 pounds overweight, just go to the American Heart Association, and it has it there in a very detailed form. Your odds of cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and heart failure go up by orders of magnitude once you're over that 20-pound number. So congratulations to you for doing that. And I just wanted to point that out for those listening. It's a significant achievement.
Yeah. Well, and it feels good, right? In reality, it really does feel good. And that was one of the drivers is you just, you lean over and there's extra stuff here and there. And like, that just doesn't feel comfortable. So let me make a change. Right.
Right.
And also for me, it's about, and I've always, even as I had the extra 20 pounds, my wife and I run a half marathon pretty much every year, obviously missed 2020. Missed this year, missed 2021. So I'm jogging regularly, but I really like setting that example for my kids, right? So that they can see a very healthy adult, an adult pursuing healthy endeavors like exercise and eating well. So that was an important piece of it to me as well.
Yeah. Terrific. And another thing I want to go back to, you alluded to it just real quickly, the Bucky molecule. Are we talking Buckminster Fuller here?
Yeah. So, so the discoverers were Smalley, Kroto, and Curl, right? And they won the Nobel Prize. And they basically kind of, if we want to get a little geeky, they had an incredible piece of equipment that would like laser zap carbon, puff of inert gas, take it into a mass spectrometer, and then it would say, of all the molecules that just got blown into the mass spectrometer, how many carbon atoms are associated with each molecule? And there were all these numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually not 1, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there was a slight peak at 60. And if you think of it in terms of graphite, where you've got a flat sheet of graphite, why would your flat sheet have more 60 count flat sheets instead of 59 or 61? And they were able to tweak the machine to make that peak so impressive that they needed an explanation. And when you take 60 carbon atoms and you wrap them around each other and take into account the fact that carbon does carbon double bonds, boom, you make a spherical molecule that looks like a soccer ball. So it also matches the geodesic dome, which Buckminster Fuller, an architect and visionary, brought to the forefront of the architectural world. And so they named that gamut of molecules, C60, C70, 76, 84, fullerenes, and then Bucky Ball is actually affectionate, and paying homage to Buckminster Fuller.
That's awesome. So he wasn't involved, but they were showing respect to him because he's got to be one of the most fascinating characters of the last century by far. He's on my list of Audible books of people that I've got to learn about. Yeah. And so I don't want to hijack the conversation here over to Buckminster Fuller, but just for those of you listening, if you love biographies and autobiographies as I do, that you can't go wrong with anything about Buckminster Fuller. This is one of the most interesting guys to ever live.
He really is. Yeah. And he's filled with like all sorts of dichotomies and kind of personality and vision and even who invented what. It really is fascinating stuff. They named it after him. Again, discovery in 85. They published in Nature magazine. Just interesting fact. There's a service that tracks all of the papers that are cited by other scientific papers. And in 1991, same year I started the company, all 10 of the 10 most cited papers were related to buckyballs or at least fullerenes. So this was like when you think about a video going viral on YouTube, this was a scientific viral discovery, a viral scientific discovery. And so that exploded. They won the Nobel Prize, and then this comes out. And as a company, we started getting calls about mid 2013 where people are going, "Hey, how much in a dose of this stuff?" And we're wearing, we're carbon nanomaterial scientists. We're like, no, no, you put this in tires and inks and batteries and solar cells. You don't put it in your human body. Now, this was despite the literature was pretty clear. Like C60 is for industrial applications. And when it's improperly processed, there's peer-reviewed published research that shows it's harmful. When you process it properly, we call it ESS 60, and that's actually safe. But again, conservative scientists, no, don't put this in your body. We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling mid 2013. And then you kind of fast forward to 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about the benefits he was getting by taking the product on a daily basis. And our phone calls went from like 1 or 2 a week to like 10 a day. Yes, we're nanomaterial scientists, but we're also entrepreneurs. And this is kind of a supplement opportunity that landed in our lap. And I'll tell you, we thought long and hard before going into the supplement industry, because I fundamentally believe that people get into the industry one of 2 ways, right? One is they decide they're going to be wealthy. They decide they're going to do it with supplements. And I have no problem with people being wealthy. That's not how I ended up in this industry. The other is like they'll have their challenges, physical challenges with themselves or maybe a parent, and they solve those. And then they want to go save the world. And hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I'm all for people saving the world. It's just not how I ended up here. I've been making this powder with this kind of crazy geodesic dome-shaped molecule since 1991. They do this crazy toxicity study in 2012, and the result is a 90% extension of life. And then like everybody's clamoring for this. So I'm just trying to be a good shepherd to this molecule and be in an industry that, you know, has its challenges, we can say.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, you're preaching to the choir on that one. It's one of the reasons I do a podcast. It's one of the reasons I'm out there as a supplement seller myself.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the ways that people know right away that you're not one of the scammers who's waiting to take the $1 million they quickly put in a bank account and head over to Sweden, which is not a story I made up.
Yeah.
that has happened many times. The supplement sellers can run a phenomenal campaign, bring in a bunch of money, and take off. And it makes life for guys like you and myself very difficult because, you know, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, for one thing, all the merchant processors have dealt with these scammers. So has Facebook and YouTube and AdWords, and everywhere we want to advertise, they need to figure out, are we a good guy or a bad guy?
Yeah.
And so what Chris is talking about here, for those of you listening, is a very real thing. And it's something to be aware of. As long as you're bringing it up, let's give a practical takeaway to people listening. If you see a really overblown, highly advertised, really hyped up advertisement, and you go to a page where this thing just sounds like it's the best thing that's ever been invented, and you can't really figure out how to contact the people, your only options are to buy. Then if you buy, they want to have you buy a whole lot more, and they put you on an auto ship where you get more and more and more. That's typically the model of how this is done, and they're very good at it, and they can put up multiple sites and they can sell a lot of stuff very quickly. Whereas Chris, guys like you and myself, we're kind of doing it the slow way. We do podcasts, we educate people, we tell people about how it works. We have to we put up the science about the ingredients that we have, just like you're discussing here. So it's worth noting, if it's a supplement seller you've never heard of, take just a couple minutes to reach out to their support, find out how quickly they get back to you, if they even have support. Just find out if it's a legitimate company.
And I would also add to that, if you're on Amazon, right? So I've actually done a video before of like, how do you find somebody who's selling a good product, right? And one of them is if their only outlet is Amazon, then they're not really committed to the business, right? So if they don't have a website where they sell products also, they're just trying to get on Amazon, make a fast buck, and move on. And I think the other that's important to stress on Amazon, and this is tough. We're on Amazon. I don't know if you guys are, but we're on Amazon so that our clients can find us. And some people like Amazon Prime, and that's great. Amazon, actually, the way the pricing, I've set up the pricing is $2 more expensive per bottle than if you go to our website. So if you're cool with that, then that's okay. The thing about Amazon is, what does a 5-star rating mean for most supplements? Like our supplement, people actually report that they feel something. But if you think about like let's just say a vitamin C, what does a 5-star rating for vitamin C even mean? I mean, I like to share, the one thing we know it doesn't mean is that somebody took that vitamin tablet, weighed it to make sure there's 1 gram, right? And then took it into their HPLC and then tested it to make sure it's ascorbic acid. Like, we know that did not happen. So a 5-star rating on a vitamin C, and frankly, on most of the supplements that are out there, really is just saying it was delivered on time. And if I bothered to count the tab, I'm assuming the tablets are the right count, and that's my 5-star rating. So it's just the Amazon. Ironically, people feel very comfortable with good ratings on Amazon. Yeah. And I use them for buying electronics, but I do not use them for supplements, because you're getting the opinion of somebody who doesn't really matter, right? They don't have the equipment to test it. They don't have the scientific background to have any ideas of what the value is. And so, yeah, it's
many of them got a free bottle in order to coerce the people to leave a 5-star review.
Exactly.
And there are teams and teams of people looking for people to buy a product on Amazon, review the product with 5 stars. They get reimbursed for the product. I will push back just a little bit on the Amazon thing. We've been on Amazon for 6 years now. And to their credit, I will tell you that they've got rid of tens of thousands of bad supplement sellers. They really have improved. Now, I think there's still truth in what you said, absolutely, but they now demand certificates of a COA, and my mind's gone blank on that. But we have to provide COA. We have to provide our manufacturer's information. There's all types of questions they ask. They verified with us and all other supplement sellers, yourself as well, I'm sure. Yeah, that our business and our phone number and who we are all matches, which was not true just 3 or 4 years ago. So someone sets up some fake LLC. They have some crappy product made with a really great looking label and bottle, right? And they throw it up there. So to their credit, it's getting better. I will give them that. Yeah. They've gotten rid of most of the really worst sellers. But what you're saying about reviews and whatnot, I absolutely agree with, especially with some of the more mundane, so we call it a mundane product, like a multivitamin, right? Yeah. Because taking a multivitamin is very similar to changing the oil in your car. It's not like it goes faster. It doesn't sound better. It hardly makes a difference. It just lasts a whole lot longer. So no one comes back 5 years later and goes, I'm going to leave a 5-star review now because I've taken that multi for 5 years and I really feel like $1 million. Yeah. And so I think that's another good little analogy to your point of what does a 5-star of a supplement review of a supplement mean? And that's really a good point. Now let's talk about your supplement. So you've been in this industry since 1991, but not as a supplement seller. When did the supplement start?
So really that study where the rats, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. In that study, they give rats water, olive oil, and olive oil with ESS 60. Instead of being toxic, those rats lived 90% longer. Not only did they live 90% longer, so a typical Worcester rat will live 32 months and it'll die with a known amount of tumors, right? And each day they live, the tumor mass is a little bit more. Despite living twice as long, the MyVitalC rats lived to 62 months, almost twice as long, 62 months, and they all died without tumor. And then a lot of people are like, oh, anti-cancer. And like, no, like absolutely not. That's not the implication of that study. There's a huge difference between dealing with a cancer that has metastasized and then actually being cancer preventative. We actually know things like a good diet, exercise, good sleep are cancer preventatives, right? And so that implications of that study are that this has cancer preventative possibilities. But it's a pretty profound result. I mean, not only living 90% longer, but not having those tumors in the rats.
And who's they? Who did this study?
So the study's out of the University of Paris, Dr. Moussa and Dr. Bati, B-A-A-T-I. And like I said, it's peer-reviewed, published research. I always like to give credit to them because remember, it was a toxicity study. And as soon as your control group, so that group that was given water is all dead, and they were all dead around 32 months, your study's over, right? Like you're pretty confident it's not toxic if you outlive just the normal lifespan of a rat. But they continued to do the animal husbandry and continued for another 30 months. So 2+ years to actually continue, like, until those rats ultimately died. And in fact, they were down to 2. One of them passed, and they euthanized the last one because they're like, it's like we're 2 years past a study, which frankly, if it were toxic, you're kind of expecting it to be even shorter than the lifespan of a Wistar rat to begin with.
Right.
So kudos to them for actually running this story to the end and creating this fantastic result.
And so as they were doing this, were you aware of the study at the time, being in the industry?
So I wasn't, like, so in 2012, when the results came out, for us, I mean, we're actually associated. My company delivered the buckyballs to the University of Paris, and my company's actually mentioned in that actual peer-reviewed published research. So we're the kind of origin of this industry in that context. So for us, it was just another paper. We're mentioned in thousands of papers as the carbon nanomaterial supplier. So it didn't, and I'll be honest, I wish I was a lot smarter and like, oh, this is something that's going to take off, I should start promoting it now. But that wasn't our response. Our response is like, okay, there's another paper. And really another company started buying buckyballs from us, putting it in oil and selling it before we even really thought about it. And so kind of certainly more capitalist motivated. We know him, and I actually have a lot of respect for him, and I believe he does things ethically. But he beat us, and then we were just kind of we also have this. So think about it. We're carbon nanomaterial scientists. People are asking for how much in a dose, and we're going, no, I'm not comfortable.
How much in a dose? No, dude, this is used on your tires.
Yeah. Like photo cells or batteries. Like you
don't eat it.
Your battery and start dosing, right? Yeah. That's just crazy. Again, the literature was clear, it was safe, but like scientists often don't move that fast. And so we added not for human consumption. We were mixing the buckyballs in olive oil and selling it if you wanted to recreate the rat experiment, right? So if you had a pet, a rat specifically at home, and you wanted to try it, great. And then that was about mid-2013. From mid-2013, really about the end of 2017, people would call us and they'd give us kind of fantastic reports about their health. And like, oh, my knee's not aching anymore. And we're kind of like, you mean your rat's knee isn't aching anymore, right? Like we didn't sell this to you for you to take it. And then really, 2017 comes, really popular YouTuber starts talking about all the benefits he's getting every day. Our phone calls go from 2 to 3 a week to 10 a day. And so coming into 2018, my business partner and I sat down and we said, look, like, what are we going to do with this? And we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first and most important is a moral question. Am I comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our teams take it. So yes, I am comfortable selling it. And then the next one is, as you know, in the supplement business, the FDA and the FTC. So you got to follow their guidelines, make sure you're doing the right things. And we're doing that. And so really, it was 2018 that I started taking the product on a daily basis, and we started kind of moving in the direction of selling it as a full-blown supplement, if you will.
For those of you listening, the backstory behind this, you got to understand, to be back to being a supplement seller. When we put together our supplements, when they arrive at the lab, they all have to be tested.
Yeah,
every ingredient gets tested.
Yep.
When they go into the lab, it's incredibly clean. Like it looks like a place where like astronauts are at work, right? And you can't go back there, right?
Yeah.
And then the entire production facility is unbelievably clean. Everyone working is completely masked up, like before COVID, not because of COVID.
Right.
Everyone's masked. Everything's very protected. Then the final product is made and has to be tested again, at which time the COA is issued. So going from being an industrial supplier to what Chris is describing here of suddenly becoming supplement sellers is no small feat. To produce according to what, to meet the FDA requirements.
And one of the things that's interesting is that it actually did put us at an advantage, and it turns out to be a significant advantage. So one of the things from 1991 really until 2018, when we kind of were going straight to consumer, we were only selling to research institutions around the world. So some research institution, they're doing research on solar cells. They buy from us. We sell them a gram of carbon-60, right? As soon as they get that gram, the first thing they do is they give it to their research associate or their grad student, if they're at a university, and they take that in the back and they do an HPLC analysis, and they know how to do it because that's what the grad student first learns. And if we're not selling what we say we're selling, we get called out right away, right?
Yeah.
And you look at, so you fast forward to 2013 and people are like, oh, let me take C60, I'll put it in oil, I'll put it on the market. Like, they're selling to people who can't test the result. Our pedigree is we've got to deliver high quality products because our clients are going to check them and know whether they're high quality products or not. The other thing in the original product, and we know this is the process of other people who sell C60, kind of, we would say industrial C60, because we don't know how they're processing it, but C60 in oil, they're following the protocol. So in that Paris rat study, they stirred it for 2 weeks, right? And they ended up with a concentration of about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. So all sorts of companies out there were like, well, if I mix it for 2 weeks, if I just follow that protocol, then I should have 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. We've looked at 22 of the products that are on the market. In fact, one of the original companies focused on MCT oil, which is fine, except MCT can only hold about 0.3 to 0.35 milligrams per milliliter. They didn't know this. They didn't have the equipment to test this, and they didn't send their product off to get tested. So their original labeling said 0.8 milligrams per milliliter, because they're like, oh, if I just switch out with MCT. So when we started going to bigger volumes, the fluid dynamics is different, right? And we realized, because we test our batches multiple times in-house, we've got the HPLC. We actually sell the column that most people in the industry use to identify carbon-60, to analyze carbon-60. We knew that 2 weeks wasn't enough on these larger vat sizes. And so we're at 3 weeks in a nitrogen backfilled environment. And when we tested like 22 brands out there, they're below what they say they are.
Now, question for you, 0.8 milligrams is a tiny, tiny amount. It's like a speck on the palm of my hand. And so here's my question. Just because they put it in oil and did that original test, did they just hit a home run out of the gate that that's the very best way to do it? Or can't you just put it in a tiny little pill and people just swallow the pill? Why oil?
So, I don't know. So people ask a couple of like, why oil and why olive oil? I think one of the reasons is, and this is when you go back and look at the safety of the molecule when it's processed properly. They'd injected the powder. So it's a black powder, C60, ESS60 is a black powder. They'd inject it subcutaneously, no ill effects. They actually had them breathe it in. Now, again, they're trying to look for if it has all these amazing properties, and it does, it's just very expensive, then man is going to be working with it on a regular basis. And if we are, then we need to know how safe it is. Does it have asbestos-like qualities so that they would give rats to breathe it and they would just excrete it out? So I think all of these, and it's well known that actually C60 is water insoluble. So it does not dissolve in water, right? And most of the vitamins that we take in actually do dissolve in water. So you really got to get it into the intestines. And I think it's part the fact that they'd already done research on just the powder and kind of knew it was not water soluble, and part the fact that there have been some people who researched the solubilities of C60 in the different oils, and they're like, well, let's give these rats oil. I think that's... So
it's fat soluble.
Yes, it's absolutely fat soluble, but not very much. You're exactly right. 0.8 milligrams is really nothing per liter, per milliliter. 0.8 milligrams is not that much. And you'll also appreciate this because you probably don't have any supplements in your lab that take 3 weeks to make.
No, not in the same way. Yeah. We have some that are very painful to make.
Yeah, right.
But yes,
extracting processes and whatever.
Well, and some of our enzymes come from Europe and things like that. But no, what you're describing, to have a facility where for 3 weeks something's like, being made. That's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
And that's just the mixing. That's not like, so just a brief kind of summary of how you make a buckyball. And before I do that, buckyballs and ESS60 is a naturally occurring molecule. So if you take the soot from a candle flame, so usually you take a cold plate and you hold it over a candle and collect the soot on that cold plate. That soot will have parts per million, parts per billion of buckyballs in it, right? But that's not enough to actually even get 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. So the way you manufacture it is you take 2 graphite rods and you vaporize them in an inert environment, so in a reactor. By the way, graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. So you're dealing with local temperatures of the sun. Like literally there's a sight glass. And if you don't have a welder's goggle in front of it, you'll get a sunburn from watching. Like you can't watch it with your eyes. You'll just ruin your eyes. And then you collect that soot, and then that soot's only 10% fullerenes. And then of that, you got to bust out the C60. The C60 is about 80% of the fullerenes that's in that original. So you're talking 8% of your production is what you're after. That's why it's so expensive. It's an incredibly challenged material to make, and then to mix it properly is also, a 3-week process.
So how expensive is it for the supplement? What does it cost someone a month?
So if you want a month's supply, it's about $99. Now, in our case, and we'll give a link, and I actually made a special link for Nairobi. We'll give a link, and that link you can get on subscription. Now, this is interesting because you said, they're going to get you on subscription. They're going to do all this stuff. What's interesting about our subscription is, again, we started really kind of selling in earnest in 2018. Yeah. We didn't bother with subscription. We're not the sophisticated marketing organization that's and our customers were like, I keep forgetting to order. Can I just get on subscription? And so we're
just to clarify, we have subscriptions too. People can order on a subscription basis. I appreciate you bringing that up. I was just talking about this very tight funnel that was what it was leading to.
Yeah.
Right. I'm saying on our store, you can go and you can put a bottle in your cart and check out and buy it. Or you can buy it on subscription. But it's just not this hard sell of we really, really, really want you on it. So I'm not against subscriptions.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they tend to be the highest goal of the scammer.
Yeah.
And so having a subscription as a convenience to a customer is just a good thing to do. And most websites have that. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because I'm not saying that only scammers have subscriptions. No. I mean, subscriptions are very common from Amazon to everywhere else. It's just, how are you marketing it, I guess?
Yeah. What does that sales funnel look like? How aggressive?
Yeah. It's part of the really aggressive sales funnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you do the funnel, you can give a better price break too, because you've got a commitment now, and you want to treat your best customers the best you can with your price.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're on subscription, it's about $75 per month, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. And it's not an inexpensive supplement. You're very familiar with supplements. That's probably there's crazy ones, right? But that's probably on the higher echelon of supplements.
If it keeps me alive for 90% longer, then sure.
Yeah. Speaking in terms of a crazy marketing idea, and this is obviously facetious, but we've thought about guaranteed to double your life or your money back, non-transferable.
That's clever. You should try it. I mean, you guys have been around a long time. You're a 30-year-old company. And so, people can have confidence in your business.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things you're asking, what do you look for from a quality company, a quality supplement company? I think you've said you've been on Amazon for 6 years. Is that 6 years is a good amount of time. You didn't come in and build your funnel and make a bunch of money and head out.
We started selling in 2009. I sold my first supplement in 2009, and we put them all on Amazon in 2014.
Yeah. So how painful was that process?
It was easy then.
Okay.
It was easy then, and that's because they were too lax. I mean, I'm glad I got on in 2014.
Yeah.
Because if you're a new supplement seller right now and you're trying to put a supplement on Amazon, basically forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's almost impossible.
There's a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's good that Amazon is getting more controls on that. So
they're protecting the end. Amazon, all sellers on Amazon have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. I don't care who you are. Amazon, but the reason for that is Amazon loves the end buyer. That's what they're all about. Yep. And if the end buyer has any problem, then they could care less about the seller. It's all about the end buyer. And I don't fault that. Yeah. Because it's the same in my business. I just want happy customers. And if they're not happy, we don't blame them, right? Yeah. Like, well, what did we do? What can we do to make this person happy? So that's all that they're really doing. Now they use bots and automation to do it, which sometimes fails. And so sometimes good guys get taken down with bad. Luckily, that's never happened to us. I don't know if you've been there, but every now and then they'll have like bots just go through and find, according to certain criteria, what they consider bad sellers, and some good sellers have been caught in that net.
We have broken up and had our products be in entirely different categories, and not know why. Like, no, we need to get back to that category that we're in, that we spent time proving to you that we should be in that category. Don't put us in this. Yeah, we've experienced that some. So
now let me ask you this: are people giving it to their animals?
Yes. So one of my kind of coolest testimonial, and I'll jump into some testimonials. So let me start with, you'll appreciate this. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. Any supplement I ever share, any testimonial that I ever share is actually, I'm in direct contact with the person. So a customer telling me about another customer's testimonial, I don't care. Also, I've kind of documented the path, and I can get back to that customer. So we can have a conversation.
The same way. We have 100. We only ever share 100% verified reviews, either on Amazon or on our own website. If they're not a verified review, meaning we know the original sale, and we have all the record of that customer. Yeah, because for those of you listening, that's now the FTC. That we're dealing with. Right?
There's a shift there. Yeah,
there's a shift.
One of our biggest distributors here in Houston, she actually tells us. I did a video with her, and she tells the story of first buying the product for her dog. And she noticed such an amazing difference in her dog that she decided to try the product. Now, you'll appreciate this. One cool thing about dogs is they don't have a placebo effect. The dog doesn't act younger and healthier because it knows it's taking an expensive supplement. It just acts younger and healthier because it feels healthier. So she decided to start taking the product. And a lot of times people ask me, like, how quickly does it work? And I've got kind of shorter stories, and hers is an interesting one because she said in the video I did with her, 3 months in, she might have argued that she hadn't really felt anything, but then she kind of like took pause and thought about it. And she's like, well, I'm working later in the evenings. I'm waking earlier. I've never been a morning person. And this, I arguably say, is the worst testimonial for a supplement ever. I cleaned my garage. Right? Do you want to clean your garage? Buy MyVitalC.
20 years worth of added up mess finally got cleared out.
But the implications are actually pretty important, right? So one of them is like having the energy to do it. One of them is having maybe the mental state to do it. And then the time because you're awake in this case. So that's one of those interesting ones. Yeah, people are giving it to their pets and reporting good stuff. I know my pet won't eat their food until you add the supplement to the food. Interesting. Yeah.
And do you have a wholesale program?
We do. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. We have a wholesale program and we have a white label program. So yeah, we can help people out with that as well.
Okay, well, for those listening, what's the hookup? You got a hookup for them.
So go to myvitalc.com/Dirobi, right? And you'll see Dirobi says it right there on top. You can find our product. A bottle is, like I said, $99. Subscription, $74.95. We also have, I don't know if I have any, we made these really cool little ampules. So that's a single serving in one little to-go ampule. And it's 5 mils. A serving is about 5 mils or 1 teaspoon. So go on subscription. Our team is not trained to talk you out of going off a subscription. You can cancel it literally at any time. The team's really good about helping you take care of that. And then as you're checking out, taking advantage of that 25% discount, use Dirobi as a code and you'll get $15 off.
Ooh, nice. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, we did not have a chat about this beforehand. And all of this is 150 plus episodes. And we almost never do any kind of affiliate arrangement or anything like that. And so this is just purely Chris being a generous guy to you on our behalf, and we really appreciate it. So Chris, I've kept you a long time, almost an hour. This is a long podcast, 53 minutes. But it's been really interesting. I hope everyone has enjoyed some of the inside baseballs. We talked about the supplement industry, which was just kind of a natural progression of two guys just shooting the bull about the industry. But hopefully you also got some good tips in there that are important, because the fact is there are many supplements that are poorly manufactured, don't contain everything Chris said about them. And the story about the people that just thought they could put it in a different oil and just assumed it would be the same. I hear these stories all the time, and they are absolutely real. And so whether you buy from me or Chris or not, be intentional about where you buy your supplements, because the industry's better. It's cleaner. We don't hear the crazy stories we used to, but there's still people that, like Chris said, they just want to become a millionaire selling you bottles of stuff. Yeah. They don't care what's in that bottle so much. But what you've got in your bottle sounds very interesting. The MyVitalC thing threw me off when I first learned about it, because I assumed it was some kind of super vitamin C. I didn't know the C was for carbon, so that's been super interesting. Yep. And Chris, is there any final words of wisdom you'd like to leave with the listeners here before we sign off?
Well, I feel like this is where I need to throw out some phrase, and a phrase that I love very much is remember, you deserve the best of everything.
Ooh, I like that. That's true. I do. I hope everyone listening goes, yeah, that resonates. That's true. I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dave, for having me.
Okay, and everyone listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.